Hi, everybody. Hey, welcome. Why is it important to be here? We're in a season called Advent, which is getting ready for Jesus to come. First time, second time. What's going on that's significant here is we talked about John the Baptist, who gets people ready to see the need. Why is Jesus coming into the world, and why is it important? Here we look at it from the Old Testament perspective of what is quoted in the New Testament, which is Isaiah 61. So Steve and I are going to talk about what is this talking about the idea that we're held captive and that there is a one who was anointed to set people free. So the text reads that the Spirit of the Lord God is upon me because the Lord has anointed me to bring good tidings to the afflicted. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and opening the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit, the planting of the Lord that he may be glorified. They will build up the ancient ruins. They will rise up the former devastations. They shall repair the ruined cities, the devastation of many generations. So, Steve, last week we got into how God pushes us, our humanity, at why do I need to come? Why is this important? And I know for a lot of people, we might think of, oh, Jesus is just a good teacher, or he's going to give people rules or tell people this is what to do, but it's bigger than that. He's not going to just tell us something. He's about to set people free from captivity. The list here was pretty tremendous. I could see the need.
And that's a message for us today, too, that we can hear, because people are still being held captive. I think as I look around in this day and age, as I watch what's going on out there in the world, listen to the news, watch social media postings, people are held captive by all kinds of things. A couple that come to mind, one is just finances. I mean, look at the number of companies that want to give you a loan to free you up, credit card debt, to be released from all of that. Finances can hold us captive. A dead-end job can hold us captive. You could be someplace where you just don't think you're going to rise to the next level or be promoted, but you have no other alternative, and you have to have an income, so you're just kind of held captive in this dead-end job. And that can just kind of take the life out of a person. I think also some sort of toxic relationship. It could be with a spouse, a significant other. Parent-child relationships can be toxic, and that can hold us captive because it just fixates our heart, fixates our emotions, and we just really can't do much of anything else, and we can't be released to live the life that Jesus came to give us, that we would have it abundant, and we could live it now, here on this earth, as well as eternally.
Yeah, so the idea that you're seeing it through all kinds of different stratas of life, and I'm thinking even us, to an extent, it's, well, where do you get your sense of that you're okay? Now, you bring up the issue of a toxic relationship between a parent and a child, or an adult child, or it could be, of course,
at least teenager.
Right. The worst things I think going on in society is young kids who are held by parents who are out of their minds, and there is a captivity there, but then as you grow into adulthood, you become angry. You need some emotional things from your parents, and you don't get them. Voila, I think you are in a captivity situation. When we live for somebody else's approval, we're in captivity. And when we never get it, and there are people who say, I never want to tell them good job or whatever because I don't want them to get too comfortable. I need the performance from the captivity.
Oh, yeah. Silence can be something that holds us captive. Silence from a partner in life, a partner in business, relationship that we have with a spouse. When somebody just gives us that silent treatment, the cold shoulder, that is holding us captive.
Right, it can, right. I mean, people use techniques to try to hold other people captive. They use shaming and guilting. But I would say even for clergy, okay? What is one of the things that we need in life? We all, I think, want to be loved. You could, or our subconscious could say, I want people to like me. I want to please them so they like me. I'm going to become a pastor. And I will say loving and good things to people. And they will like me. Well, there's a captivity in that. Once you need something, I think it can hold you captive. Now, we don't talk about it this way, but I know one of the great things that really get us unnerved in our time and place in history is the idea of someone making someone else a slave. Slavery today, what was going on in the United States back in the 19th century, is just big time taboo. People say it's wrong. But the problem of life is there's so many things that hold us captive and we don't even know it. That we say, hey, that's just life as it is.
And unfortunately, for some people, they just grow to accept it because they don't know what the other choice is, or they can't even find a way to break free, to make a choice to live a free life. And that's what Isaiah passage is talking about. And then when Jesus quotes this passage in Luke chapter 4, he is saying, I'm that person. I'm that person that will set you free. I'm that person who will give you that year of Jubilee, that will set us free, break the bonds that are holding us back.
Right. Now, you mentioned before the year of Jubilee. Could you just say something about what is the year of Jubilee?
Year of Jubilee was an Old Testament custom. About every 50 years, there would be a year of rest, a year of Sabbath, and then there was a forgiveness that was experienced by people. All the debts would be wiped out. And talk about freedom. Can you imagine today if all of your debts were wiped out, how free you would feel?
What I don't get about it, Steve, is, the year of Jubilee is like, who the heck wants to loan out money 6 months before the year of Jubilee? You're going to be into a big loss. I don't know how the heck they worked out. But this idea of freedom, I think that's why, again, when Powerball numbers go up, and the jackpot is so high, people will start lining up because people live in this slavery. And I think that's where it is. If you live in the slavery, it's not like, well, okay, that's bad, but I know that in that I can do something and that I can get my needs met. I know if I do this, people will like me. I know if I get this kind of cash, I can go to the beach because I've been to the beach and I like the beach. And if I can get there, I'll be happy all the time, not realizing once I get there, it might not be what I thought it was for the rest of my life in retirement. But there's idea that we're held captives by the things that God gives us that are good. And we take those things and say, that's going to make sense of my life. And it could be family. It could be just our pride and aren't we smart? And I know a lot of things and my slavery says, well, do you know enough? Well, I'm better than they are. So there's this captivity.
And even our aspirations can hold us captive. People that say, I have this goal and I have to achieve that goal within 4 years, 5 years, whatever it may be, a reasonable amount of time. And if they don't get to that goal, somehow they feel like they're a failure. Why not just extend it and say, well, it took me longer to do that than I thought it would. And that was my case in graduate school. I thought I was going to complete a PhD in 5 years. That was the plan that they gave me.
What was the standard, Steve?
5 years was the
So you had the 5 years. I'm under 5 years.
5 years.
And it worked.
No, it took me 8.
Took you 8.
Took me 8 years.
Were you frustrated?
I was frustrated, but there were other things that intervened in my life. There was a family move. There was a relocation. And so there was a delay in pursuing the completion of the dissertation. There was all kinds of other things going on in the new location that distracted me that I couldn't get to work on that. And there kind of came a time when I just kind of said, well, I need one more extension. And what you had to do every time was enroll, and you had to pay a semester's tuition, so it cost me, but I wanted to complete that. But I finally just kind of gave up with the idea that I'm going to complete this on my timeline. I'm going to complete this in the timeline that works for me and the people around me. And once I finally let go of that, I was no longer captive to this imaginary timeline, and other people say, well, how come you haven't finished that yet? Well, how much time do you have to listen to my list of things that are going on? And so I was released. I felt free when I just kind of gave up and gave into a timeline that was beyond me. And I think sometimes captivity is within our own, within our heart, within our own brain, that we just kind of set these sometimes unreasonable, goals, and we are held captive to that, and we just say, well, I'm not going to do that, so I give up.
Right, and I think that a lot of the Christian faith is, when John the Baptist comes on the scene, it's about letting go. Letting go to what's working in your life besides the one true God. Because this is the difficult part to point out here, that if we have anything that's holding our life together, which we all do to some extent, and we make more important than the one true God, Jesus would call us slaves. Anybody who sins is a slave to sin. And sometimes people like that life. They know that life. They know the life of setting goals. I've set goals and they've worked before. The problem in life is when it stops working. I don't know if that's what happened to you with your PhD. You just said, hey, you know what? I've had it with my timeline. I'm letting go. I'm going to walk at a pace of peace and freedom. And you did get your goal met. I think it's interesting in Isaiah, though, he's pushing at bind up brokenhearted, proclaim liberty to the captive, and that he's there to try to say to people, look, I'm going to set you free. I'm going to comfort those who are mourning. And how many people live in their life where it's just in fog, and we go through these times of life. God is out to give us what we need. The thing is, how can we understand our captivity? And would we want to leave our captivity? If you say, it's working for me, I'm making things happen in my life, I'm setting goals, I'm getting education, I've got financial goals, and they're working, and I'm getting little by little my needs met. I don't want to, okay, this is the life I know. This is good for me. I'm going to just continue to live it.
Well, I think sometimes, Pastor, that people find a comfort zone within that captivity. And they get attention, they get support, they can even get care. I think of a friend of mine, a fellow educator, also retired, talked about how he lost a sister in a tragic car accident, and left behind just he and his brother, and how he talked about how his mother never got over it. And this is a good Christian family, faith-filled people, church-going people.
You say the worst thing is for a mother is to lose a child.
And it was the worst thing, but and this was a story that he told 25, 30 years later. She never got over it. I can understand the timeline of grief, going on, even for a number of years, but we're talking 20, 25 years. The fact that he used that term, she never got over it.
I wonder what he meant by that.
I think she was enslaved to her grief. And that everything, within the family.
Enslaved to her loss.
Yeah, to the loss. There's such a big hole, and it would leave a huge hole in your heart. Any of us who've lost close family members know that. But that's where, when Jesus says, I come to bind up the brokenhearted, he's talking about saying, I can heal this. The scar may still be there. The fact that, that there was a loss will never be forgotten, but you can move forward. You can move, to more abundant living, because I have given you life. I have come, and I've given you the promise that you will see this person again in eternity as you believe in me.
Yeah, so talking about mourning, and I know, Steve, a little bit of noise here, that last time we got together, you talked about losing your dad in 1969 in a tragedy at work. And I thought, I wonder what Steve was like in April, and what was Steve like in May after this had happened, and how did your faith in God work through that?
I think what got us through that was just the consistency of practicing our faith. The consistency of going to a Lutheran parochial school where we were taught every day. We worshiped once a week in chapel. And then when I graduated from that school and went on to public high school, I was involved in youth group and involved in church activities, sang in the youth choir. And all of that just led me to hear God's calling to serve a career in the educational ministry of the church. And I think it wasn't a dramatic aha moment, but it was just this steady kind of going back to life.
Steve?
Day in, day out. We sat in the same pew.
Your
church.
dad? Oh, your family.
Minus
did.
our father. You know, it was like, here we are. We don't have him here. Everybody can see that. But we're here. And God is here. And he's bringing us comfort. He's surrounded us with a community of faith. Surrounded my mother with all kinds of support that she needed as a young widow. She was only 36 years old.
Yeah.
And she had no job at that time. She had a profession. She was a trained teacher, but couldn't go back to that at that time.
Yeah. Well,
So-
Steve, when you look at that situation, and when you look at that situation about what did it on your worst day, Steve? When you were in this place of mourning, what was that like for you on Steve's worst day, losing his dad? And what did you talk to God? Do you remember what you were saying to him?
Oh, yeah. I my first reaction was, don't let it be true.
Like, no,
Don't let it be it was denial.
Yeah.
I mean, it was bargaining. It was like, let's just not have this be the truth here. You know, because there was just a wash of people around us and so much activity going on that I thought, well, maybe this just is a bunch of confusion and something, it's not true. It's just not true. I remember praying that prayer, actually.
So that was the first things you said to God was, it's not true, it's not true.
No, it can't be. And then, but, reality hit in when you go to the funeral and he's not there. And
So it took some days.
yeah, it took days, it took weeks, but I think what helped us is that we had those other routines, we had other freedom in our life to experience our faith. We went to Zion Lutheran School every day, my sisters and I, Zion Lutheran Church on Sundays, and continued that way, for years, all the way through until going away to Teachers College to become an educational leader in the church. My sisters, similar experience too, all the way through, got that support. They were able to go to a Lutheran high school, and people knew what happened to us, but they didn't treat us any differently, but they were very careful and caring to us.
Yeah, because when I see in here about binding up wounds, and you talk a lot about community, which almost brings me like to the 4th verse where he says he will build up the ancient ruins, raise the devastations, the ruined cities. I'm seeing community there on that last verse and how God will work in community to bring healing. But I know at the same time, people in community can feel captive. People in community can be mourning. I mean, in this church, we're going to do for the first time what we call the Blue Christmas, which is for people who, I'm just not so happy right now. I don't have that big word joy. It might be on my ornaments on the tree, but I don't feel that way. And all these people are into good life, and I'm just not with that. I feel like maybe I even need to be in there, but they're not, is working with people from there and how God will actually do this. Now, from your story, I keep hearing community, of how you healed in community. And I also heard from you how you healed from taking action on God's faith. I don't know if you looked at your siblings, you would say, well, who got through the best with this and who didn't? Maybe that's not even a fair question to ask, but you did start with this friend of yours who lost a daughter, and she just never got over it, whatever that meant to him, from his view, looking at the mother. How does God do these things? But I see in Isaiah 61 that God is working through the malady, the things that hurt us in life. He is renewing us. He is building us up again, and that's why Jesus is coming. Now, this passage going off of the New Testament, John is trying to break people down. John the Baptist is trying to show them, hey, you're just not. My faith life for me, and I still don't know why I pursued God in my life.
I think he pursued you.
Well, yeah, there was that, but why didn't I just say, hey, man, let's just do church, okay? I could just go to church with my wife, and we'll just do church, but I thought there's more to it than that. Where did that come from? That I was drawn to this, and that my life changed. Now, some guys like yourself, and I don't know if you feel this way, that, I have this moment of, we have Martin Luther in this church, we talk about in the church body, who had the gates of paradise open up. That happened to me with the gospel. And some people that have been in church their whole life, they look at us and go, whoa, I never felt that way. Because this is what I've always had. This is what I always believed, I wish I could get that. I remember my mother saying that one time. She said, these charismatics, she's a Catholic, they when they hear about the gospel, they say, that's good news. She said, I don't get that excited about it. And I don't know from your perspective, because it's like, because still we are captive, even when we're following Jesus Christ. There's always things to let go of in our life. Always. But if you're in that kingdom,
it's always something to let go of and to allow God to come in and heal. And that's why, in our Lutheran practice of worship, that point and that of the service where we have that time of confession, where we can let go of that, right, either in words that are written out for us in a bulletin, on a screen, or even the silent reflection that sometimes our worship leaders point us towards. And we can do that every day, where we can just kind of say, Lord, I just need to let go of this. I need to let go of that. And right, and from a spiritual point of view, that's healthy. Psychologists would certainly, with no spiritual connection, would say that is healthy, to let go of things that are enslaving you, that are burdening us.
Yeah.
And that, again, sets us free, because that's the whole message of the gospel. We've been set free. That.
Right. Well, God wants to bring us to a better place, but we don't see a better place when we accept the place we're in. My life is fine the way it is. I like it. I got a paycheck coming. I got family for Christmas. I know what kind of food we're having, and when we cook our food, I know how I like it, medium rare, and I just like my life the way it is. I like my sports on the weekend, but to see something bigger and better in life, this is what the Holy Spirit tries to do, is to show us, you think you've got life and you want to work in this realm? There's something bigger than that. And I want to move you to a bigger place.
Well, there's comfort in predictability.
There is.
There is.
And we can fall on that in the church. People get into church traditions. I'm comfortable, it's predictable, and it's good for me.
Yeah.
With no sense of purpose of growing in their faith. You can come to church year after year and you grow zip.
And you look at the life that Jesus lived on this earth, it was anything but predictable. He frustrated his followers. He frustrated the church leaders at the time because he was so unpredictable. And I think that kind of creates an openness for us in our faith, is to have a little bit of unpredictability, knowing that we still trust in God and he will lead us and guide us. But to have that experience where he is going to allow us to go to another. We're getting a message that it's time to close off here.
All right. Hey, thanks for everybody being with us. We know we had a little negative feedback here today. Negative feedback? Well, that's the mics. But we're glad that you're in with us. If you'd like to check us out, you can on Facebook, and we're going to have our message that's going to go out this weekend at 10:30 Pacific time. And also check out our Facebook. We're going to put a message out about Isaiah 61. But God's peace be with you. Looking at our life about how God wants to set us free and show us that freedom that he accomplishes in Jesus Christ, I hope that you pursue that and keep hitting on that door. God's peace be with everybody. Take care. Thanks for being here.